So, good morning, everyone, and thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. We are very pleased to be able to welcome those of you that have been with us for a long time now, as well as those who are new to COS and ever since we started our partnership with COS at De Montfort University. So today marks the fifth International Peace Day event, and we are proud to be able to host it today here at this wonderful university with all of you. During the last 2 years, we had to embrace digital platform to celebrate International Peace Day on the 21st of September, and I know many of you were waiting to celebrate the day face to face. Here we are today. So thank you for your patience and support throughout. This year, we have changed the date to align with the British Science Festival that is taking place at Leicester and in collaboration with De Montfort University. Now, before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who generously helped us make this event come together to become a success. We couldn't have done this without you. A special thanks to Komal and Anaptas for helping us today, and we will hear from them during today's event about the work that they are doing at the university. I would also like to thank one of our PhD students, Yvonne Sansoy, for giving her precious time when she's really in her writing phase as well in her first year. Really appreciated. I would also like to thank the Media and Communications Research Center for their consistent support and encouragement in organizing events with the community to strengthen our research. Now, throughout the day today, we have planned to celebrate the work of the local, diverse, and vibrant community to remind us of their contribution in serving Leicester, Leicestershire, and Rutland. Your passions help us all to unite, and the energy we create is what allows us to achieve our individual as well as group goals. We need you as much as you need us, and that is why we are grateful to have you join us here at De Montfort University. So I'm not going to take much of your time now. We have a whole day planned with activities and projects and a working lunch as well. So today will be fun, and we will have a full day of learning as well with the community together. So a very warm welcome to you all again. Now, let me now welcome Professor Katie Normington, our Vice Chancellor, who has kindly given us time to inaugurate our event today. We will start by inviting her to lead the Glastonbury candle and then to move on to her inaugural speech. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. So Professor Katie Normington joined De Montfort University as Vice Chancellor in 2021 from Royal Holloway University of London, where she was the Deputy Principal Academic. Following her arrival at DMU, Katie launched a university-wide consultation to co-create a new strategy to ensure the university remains relevant and continues to meet people's real needs in the decades ahead. The consultation process involves staff, students, governors, external stakeholders, and experts. DMU's Board of Governors has since approved the strategy, and it is available on De Montfort University's page and its supporting strategies and implementation plans. The implementation of the new strategy includes Education 2030, which considers how the university will provide teaching and learning in the future and aims to produce a structure that can fit learning around the increasingly complex lives of the students. So here we have Professor Katie Normington. A very warm welcome, and over to you now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It always feels like the moment where something could go wrong, the lighting or something. But anyway, it's my absolute pleasure to be able to light the Glastonbury company. Great. Thank you. So
thank you to those of you joining us online, but to those of you in the room as well. Really delighted to welcome you here to De Montfort for today's very important celebration of the International Peace Day. It's really important, obviously, that we share this moment and that it's marked across the world, because there continue to be, obviously, tensions which threaten peace at the moment, and as ever, I suppose, but I think we're very aware of them at the moment. The International Day of Peace is a United Nations sanctioned holiday, and it's observed annually on the 21st of September. We're a little ahead of the times, as we always are on everything, of course. And it's dedicated to world peace and to specifically to the absence of war and violence. Obviously, some of that may also be about a temporary and occasioned ceasefire in a combat zone, particularly for humanitarian aid access. And the celebration of World Peace Day goes back a long time. It was first celebrated in 1981. So peace is a particularly important theme for us at De Montfort University. We're a very diverse student and staff body. So over 50% of our students are from ethnic minorities, and a good proportion of our staff are too. And that way we can celebrate, I think, the cultural richness that we have as a university. But also we, in many ways, of course, draw on the richness of the location of Leicester as a city, Leicester being one of the first cities to reach over 50% of ethnic minority citizens in the city. And of course, our students are very tied to that city, with 40% of them coming from Leicestershire in a wider area. For the last 3 years, DMU has been part of the United Nations Academic Impact Initiative. And this honour is a reflection of the faith the United Nations has in us, in placing us as a global hub for Sustainable Development Goal 16. And of course, 16 is of particular importance to us because it is of peace, justice, and strong institutions. So really at the foundation of the themes that you'll be talking about today. We're obviously very proud that we're the only academic impact hub for SDG 16 in the world, but also on top of that, the only academic impact initiative for a university in the UK. So it's a real privilege that we hold this status. And it was also, we've held that for 3 years, and it was a real honour to have it renewed as well last year for a further 3 years as well. I was able to see firsthand some of the work that we were doing around that earlier in June, when I accompanied 4 of our students to the UN, where they presented their work about sustainability. And it was fantastic to see their experiences and to attend the UN building in New York as well. Peace is also important for us here at De Montfort because it's one of our 5 main research themes. So peace, equality and social justice forms one of the 5 new research themes that we're exploring as a university. And the theme focuses with issues mainly covered with peace, such as freedom of the media, trust, social cohesion, stable communities, reducing violence and conflict, tackling gender and racial inequalities, promoting a strong civil society, protecting children, women and refugees from exploitation, and having equal access to justice and education, combating national and transnational organised crime, and promoting accountable and transparent institutions and strong democratic processes and political systems. So you can see from some of those themes that sit within our wider research theme that peace is really central to the things that we're doing within that. I'm really delighted as well that today's event is held in conjunction with COS, with Celebrate Our Similarities, and particularly for that organisation. They aim obviously to advance education in the public areas of basic human needs and rights, in climate change and in cross-cultural understanding, in identifying, adopting and sharing good practice examples, and in the overarching themes of personal peace and climate change, particularly with a focus on food, water, air, equality, well-being and mental health. And of course, many of those things are things that we may sometimes take for granted, but of course sit very much at the heart of people living within peaceful conditions. Again, COS is such a good match for us because they do focus on Sustainable Development Goal 16, so the peace, justice, strong institutions, and they're developing collaborations locally, nationally and globally. So we're really delighted to be collaborating with them for this. So it's my real pleasure to obviously have the opening slot of this. I do hope that you have a very fruitful day. It's really nice to see people coming together from across the university and across the city and wider to engage in what's a really important part of what we do. And I'm very pleased to see that Glastonbury candle is still lit. My real honour to do that, and fantastic that we've been able to bring that from Glastonbury here to Leicester to celebrate the day as well. I think it's now my great honour to introduce Deputy City Mayor, Councillor Adam Clark. So Adam is currently Leicester's Deputy City Mayor with responsibility for transport, clean air and climate emergency. And he's got a wide-ranging portfolio which includes city's responsibilities for climate emergency. And in addition, he leads on transport policy, waste, energy, biodiversity and the labour market issues. He was first elected to Leicester City Council in May 2011, so a decade ago, and he's currently in his third term. He was promoted to elected city mayor by the elected city mayor to his executive post in 2015 and then to deputy mayor in 2017. And he's passionate about the environmental, social, health and economic justice and real advocate of how one goes about creative learning and co-creation. And I think that's a really important theme to today, is how you as delegates and participants can co-create to explore the themes that you'll be looking at. So my pleasure to hand over to Adam, and I wish you a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the Vice-Chancellor, particularly for reminding me how long I've been a councillor for. It's a real honour and a pleasure to come and speak to you this morning, not least because I once lectured here at De Montfort University as a visiting lecturer. I visited for several years. They kept me on the books teaching education studies. I taught radical educations module, and I taught a history of educations module and the philosophy of educations module. And that, I think, led me to learn a lot more than the students did, actually, because I was really able to engage with the young people in a way that I found really nourishing as a creative learning practitioner, as I was at the time. The idea of learning together and growing together enabled me really to come into my role now, actually, to be a leader in my community, but to recognise that we're all leaders in our own lives and we all have a responsibility to understand and engage and reflect to enable us all to move on. And that's the kind of philosophy I take into my work. And that is challenging because sometimes we have to have very challenging conversations. And the last word you'd use in my job for some of the conversations I have is peaceful. But what we try to do and what I try to do is to what I call squeeze the pips out of those conversations to get us to a better place as a city, as a community, as a society. And I think that idea of delivering change through challenging conversations, delivering peace through respectful, challenging conversations, delivering a better society through those conversations is something that I hope that I can instill in the people that I talk to about the work that I do, because I believe that's incredibly important, to have challenging conversations, to have respectful conversations, to recognise we all do it because we want people's lives, including our own, to be better. I've got to thank Kamla for inviting me today to talk to you, and to thank you all for coming to listening to me. I mean, it promises to be a really rewarding day. I'm very cognizant of the fact that you might forget everything I say, but I know from looking at the lineup, there will be nuggets you will take away from today, and they will change the way you think or give you new ideas or enable you to move on. I hope at least one of you remembers at least something I say to you this morning. I want to talk about two things, really, two things that are very close to my heart. One is leadership, and the other is the climate emergency. And those things, obviously, in my view, need to come together. Now, in terms of the climate emergency that we face, the thing that worries me isn't impending doom and the end of the earth. I think we can prevent that. I hope you'll be pleased to hear. The thing that really worries me is this concept that the United Nations has adopted as climate change as a threat multiplier. So what climate change does, not only does it change temperatures and make the world more difficult to live in, but the knock-on effects of that destabilize society and therefore destabilize peace. And I think that is the greatest threat that climate change poses. So the change in weather conditions, food scarcity, flooding, that actually can destabilize people to a point that can, in its worst scenario, create war. And there is evidence that suggests that the war in Syria, for instance, has climate change causes behind it. And that is something that I think we need to be really concerned about, the threat of climate change in destabilizing world peace. But so that concept of a threat multiplier, it must have an antonym. It must have an opposite. So the question I really pose to you today is, what is a peace multiplier? So what is it that we can harness that enables us to create a more stable society, not just in mitigating the impacts of climate change, sticking solar panels on roofs, driving electric cars, cycling and walking more, putting insulation in our buildings, putting in flood mitigation that prevents places from flooding. Yes, we have to do all that, and that can be a peace multiplier, but thinking beyond that, what do we need to do? And that comes into this concept of leadership, which I started with, really talking about leadership roles, but actually how we make leadership something that is a dialogue and something that's mutually shared between us all. And that comes on to a reason why it's really important I'm speaking to you here today in a university, a place of learning particularly for younger people. I had a conversation recently about how do we develop leaders who are establishing themselves, who are emerging as leaders. How do we get emerging leaders to understand the challenges of today now, so that they can lead as the climate gets worse and they can respond as the climate becomes more threatening to us? I stopped and I thought, and I had quite an intellectual, some might say maybe an introverted, insular conversation about that word emerging. What is an emerging leader? And actually, doesn't that immediately subjugate that individual as an emerging leader? Because you have an established leader. So you could say I'm an established local leader at quite a low level, but I'm an established local leader. If I start talking about an emerging leader, I've immediately subjugated them. And actually, I think those young leaders that exist today are actually helping to drive me forward. My daughter's about to go to university in Liverpool next week. By God, she keeps me on my toes in terms of how I should be thinking about the future of society. And actually, she is leading me in so many ways. And students in this university, new graduates, people in their early careers, I think are deserving of equal status as leaders. And I don't think if they're not given that equal status, we will end up having the worst impacts of climate change and other concerning possibilities in terms of society will arise, because it is those emerging leaders who have the freshest eyes, the newest ideas, and they're able to see these problems in macro, these global problems that we're facing. And they're able to communicate them and actually visualize them in micro, and to see how in their lives they can respond to these problems. And I think somebody like me finds that really difficult, actually. I see big problems, but to be able to see solutions that help us to challenge those problems and to see how those solutions can grow and grow and grow, I think young people are best placed to do that, because they have that clarity and that creativity, I hope, to enable us to do that. So I do think we need a paradigm shift in terms of how we define leadership. I think we do need to think about who's going to lead us into the society that we all want to see, and that is not me. To use a word that I use quite a lot in other contexts, I'm already quite polluted. Yeah, I don't have the clarity, I don't have the sense of vision, and I probably don't have the creativity, and I probably have a bit of complacency. I need people with more clarity, more vision, to keep me in check, like my daughter does. So that's why I believe we need a parity of esteem, amongst us all as leaders in our society, so that we're all leaders in our own lives, so that we can develop those peace multipliers that will enable us to mitigate any issues that we face in the future, climate change, war, and the rest of it. Thank you very much.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Kamala Patney, and I'd like to thank Professor Katie Normington and Deputy Mayor Adam Clark for joining us today. I'm the founder of Celebrate Our Similarities, and I'd like to thank you all personally for making this event so successful. We've lit the candle, and very proud to have brought that to Leicester. If you want to understand the reason why we've brought it to Leicester, I would suggest that you go on YouTube and look up, literally look up, historic Glastonbury Award ceremony. You will see the reason why after you, after what I explained to you about what COS is about. So just to give you an idea of why we think Leicester is conveniently situated in so many ways in terms of achieving social impact, Celebrate Our Similarities has identified two key themes, and they are personal peace and climate. And as was mentioned, climate is a significant issue. It needs to be understood more by communities. And I agree that the young people are probably the most vibrant and our best chance at getting things actually activated to mitigate climate change. But in Leicester, I would suggest that the local communities need to be more aware of what it is that climate change is being impacted by their own actions. And, we've done some testing here on a particular issue, and I won't go into the details of that, but it has identified that when you engage with people on a practical level, so for example, we used Indian vegetables as a way of explaining how the carbon footprint is developed. If you get something from the other side of the world and you waste it, what it causes. And that was a captivated audience there for that. And they started to understand that maybe I need to look at what I'm doing. So that's an angle for Leicester that I think is very important. But within the context of the personal peace theme that we have, we've identified a global peace education program developed by a UN recognized peace ambassador with a link to Leicester. And we have been running that here at the De Montfort University recently, and it's been very well received. And, there are so many significant factors that I'd just like to, and this is the bit where I'd like to discuss what the walking the pathway to peace from my point of view about why COS does what it does. So bear with me on this. Imagine that in this direction, 5 minutes away from here, we've got the Richard III Centre. We've got such a historic situation developed in Leicester. Richard III was the last Plantagenet king whose ancestors were the people that actually created the Magna Carta. So the significance of that is that the Magna Carta ultimately is a peace charter. And when you consider that, this is the significance of Leicester, the peace charter is the basis of all the democracy that we have the modern democracies based on the Magna Carta. So the significance of Leicester having that central status, we want to capture that, and then I'd like you to think about 10 minutes walk away from here. There used to be a Granby Halls. Some of you may know that. It was one of the largest venues in Leicester. And in 1971, the UN Peace Ambassador that I'm talking about actually came as a 13-year-old and held a packed out event there. And since then, for over 50 years, there's been a significant amount of social impact made through what is now the Peace Education Program. And what we're saying is that Leicester has the possibility of creating social impact through something that's already happening around the world, and we are in a very unique position to, you know, benefit from it. And we've got all the different communities. So for example, as was mentioned, you know, we've got 55% of Leicester City's population is of ethnic minority, or if nowadays we call it world majority population. So in essence, what we're trying to say here is that we need to bring people together and we celebrate our similarities. It has been around since 2020. We've registered in 2021, and we are now, I believe, in a unique position to be able to offer, for example, the De Montfort University in its international hub status. If you read the material that we've provided you, you'll see that the agreement that they have with the De Montfort, with the United Nations, is that for every year they will develop at least 3 major projects. And the project that we want to offer is based on getting people together and potentially, so that's the other element. If you walk just another 5 minutes in another direction, we've got Peace Walk, and there's a peace monument there on Victoria Park. And Leicester has already had such a massive experience of holding an impromptu Football Premier League celebration event on Victoria Park where 250,000 people came. Now, I'm not suggesting that we go to that extent, but we can be doing something that is regular, and it could be a legacy project for Leicester's De Montfort University holding the very first United Hub status for peace, justice, and strong institutions, which are some of the key issues of our time. So without going on too much about it, what I would like to say is that please do find out about Celebrate Our Similarities, engage with us, and let's all work together in all the different aspects of climate change, what it means to have clean water around the world, how all of that impacts anything that happens on the other side of the world. Either we can help to mitigate any issues, or we are connected in as a global community. And this is what we want to achieve over time. So today, just moving on to the program for today, just to say that we were going to actually launch a Leicester Charter today, but in respect of the loss of our Queen, we've decided to postpone that, and we will hold another event to launch that, and we will invite you to it. We won't go into the detail too much about what it is, but it's very simple. But what we're saying is that it is like a 21st century Leicester Peace Charter, Magna Carta type, bringing all the communities together. Very simple, 2 areas, peace and climate. They are the issues of our time, I believe. So look out for that in the future. in terms of today's program, we've got a range of issues. So the peace education program that I mentioned, which we ran, we have a number of people that have been working in and around Leicester and well, all over the world actually. And we've invited a couple of people to actually just come forward and we'll grab a couple of chairs, and I would ask Billy and Anra and Dave Shook to come forward, and I'll maybe just have a quick chat about what peace education is and what's going on and how they've been involved.